Buenos dias. Good afternoon from Mexico. You know, the teen years are not exactly everybody's favorite years, right? They're not pleasant for most people involved, especially for the teens. All the changes they're going through with their hormones, the slow but increasingly accelerating separation from their parents in terms of handling their own finances, making their own decisions, taking care of themselves fully. That's all really raging in the teen years, as well as a lot of other things that are not going on in other periods of life. So here we are on a street of Mexico, and I'm going to pose the question, how much has this kind of street, as well as any street in the United States, been replaced by social media? How often and how long has it been since the street has started being replaced by social media? Because wouldn't there be teens out here, among others, on a street in Mexico or anywhere in the USA, interacting with each other? That's what teens do, right? They're trying to figure things out, and they like hanging around each other. Now, I picked a random moment here, and this street isn't even necessarily typically Mexican. It would be definitely be considered upscale by Mexican standards, but this is a neighborhood that has Mexicans and other Latinos and Americans and Canadians living in it. It's like roughly a 50-50 mix. And it's the setting for today's class, which is on those really difficult years, teenage years, and specifically how social media affect those years. And we can refer to these teens as digital natives. I think that's a very interesting concept. It means that for teens to live today, to have lived today, means that they have grown up with the digital world, which is not the case for all of us. I know that for myself, that's obviously not the case, and probably some of you in this class, since we really start to consider the digital world somewhere around 1995, or at least that's when I do. But at any rate, to get back to the idea that people who are brought up in this time period are digital natives, that means that they have special skills, also special challenges, and just they have an all-around different experience because they're growing up with a kind of parallel universe setting. That means that they have these two universes. One, the real life, where you see people, you talk to them, you sometimes touch them, you get into great adventures with them in person. When you are on the digital world, it's a world unto itself, and it's so expansive and so encompassing in terms of the way that people lead their lives and conduct their business and carry out social arrangements. It is a separate world unto itself in some ways. And so you have two universes if you are a digital native. We know that for young people, especially teens, and I have to say especially teen females, that there's a lot of anxiety that comes along with the use of and expected responses to social media. The whole unfriending thing, not responding to texts, leaving voicemail messages that go unanswered, posting rude comments on social media, not hearing back from somebody and not understanding why, a ringtone that's been changed on somebody's phone that used to be just for you. You know, there's so many things. That little device that goes off with notifications all day long, it creates a kind of anxiety that did not exist in our lives before. And particularly for teenagers, where your peers have so much to do with your well-being, for most people, it's pretty difficult. That's a gas truck. It's going to deliver propane gas for the roofs of the Mexican houses. That's how they get their heat in their houses. They don't need heat to stay warm, but they need it to cook with. Anyway, back to teens and social media. We know that like other groups of people from this chapter, that social media use, even though it has the potential to be worldwide, especially for teens, meeting people from other countries, it still is mostly used locally. It's used by people and talking with people and about people who you also have the capability of visiting within a reasonable range, by car or visiting with other people. We know that also young people are interacting exclusively more than people in other age ranges. And what that means is that the teenagers, 18, 19, 17, 16, those ages, if you look at the people that they talk with on social media, like 90% or more are all people in their same age group. Parents are secondary. Grandparents certainly secondary. People younger than teens secondary. At that age range, you're really hanging out for the average teen with a lot of people, and that makes it very different on social media because everything is amplified, and it's so easy for one thing to become known by everybody who's part of this public network. We know that this group of teens, and this is true for yourself as well, I'm sure, that email is a very formal and for some inaccessible form of communication. There are people who feel that they don't have the skills to communicate on email because it requires a certain level of formality to it, sentence structure wise and nuance wise in terms of the words chosen, that young people just don't feel today they don't have it if they're just used to that texting world, just used to that quick thumb press on the phone response kind of world. So that's very different for digital natives as well today. We know that rite of passage for teens into adulthood is very much aided by social media, right? Because social media, if you look at what they can provide for people today in their own homes, young people, in terms of their transition and separating from their parents, you have all these privacy settings where you can screen your parents out of your lives and still be in the house. You have the ability to take up a completely different persona if you want to without your parents knowing. You can go out and have experience with others, like if you're a video gamer, and not leave your bedroom and your parents are still in the house. So there's an ability to separate yourself in that digital native world today that previously had to be done by, I'm going to go spend the night over my friends, or I'm going to go camping and get out of the house, or I'm just going to be gone all day at the state fair, or wherever. That physical separation is being replaced by that digital mental separation. So we know that social media actually can assist and help young people into that separation, and in some ways not expose them to dangerous situations in the real world, like potential crime situations if they had left the room. Not that young people should be afraid of that, but just trying to consider all angles to it. So I've used the term a moment ago, networked public culture, and that word was introduced in an earlier chapter, but here it reemerges and is defined better now. And a networked public culture, which is what anybody who belongs to, if they have a social media platform, if they have a profile on a social media platform, they're part of a networked public culture. That is the combination of personal culture spilling into public culture. Think about that. Personal culture spilling into public culture. Our personal culture is all those memento type things that we communicate about in our life, the photo albums that we used to have in a drawer, the diaries next to our bed, the little envelopes and stamps that came in the mail that we've saved. These kinds of personal mementos, these are all put onto social media today by a lot of people, and they have become public culture. And so those two things together, the spilling of personal culture into public culture, which would normally be reserved for mass media and radio and television, that's public culture. So the spilling of the one into the other has created networked public cultures. And those are what you belong to by virtue of your Facebook friend group, by virtue of the people who are looking at your Snapchat, the people who you are on a listserv with because of the university. Those are public. Those are network publics. Back to what teens face in the social media world, though, let's also mention that offline and online friendships are not really separate in the digital native world. Offline and online friendships really are commingled with each other, because what constitutes one and what, it's not as simple as saying, I've met this person in person, and the online person is somebody I've never met, but I'm friends with them. It's not that simple. The boundaries cross over. You have the feeling of meeting somebody if you've seen them on YouTube. You have the feeling of meeting somebody if you've been talking to them for a long period of time. So that boundary is blurred for people, and I think it creates some confusion. Now, there's a whole bunch of activities, let's talk about them, that young people, teens, and yourselves are able to engage in as part of this digital native world that were not possible before. So dating online, for example, shows on Netflix like Shameless make fun of the use of Tinder just simply to meet somebody, as the lead character does, and have sex with them. But it does describe a new world, where relationships are struck up with some pretty specific things known beforehand, before you even get together with somebody, because of social media. The ability to specify exactly what you want, ethnicity and age and sports or nature, etc. All of that is very, very specific and is very different for the way that young people are meeting today. I've known several people who've had exclusively online relationships before they even ever met in person. And in general, if you look at friendship as a similar kind of idea of two people coming together, social media accelerate friendship today in ways that was not possible in the past. You become a friend very, very quickly on social media. And you can also break up as friends very, very quickly. In fact, that word, friendship breakup, is kind of a new concept that we certainly didn't have when I was a teenager. The idea that a friendship breakup has this very dramatic and sad and difficult to make it through kind of feeling to it is something that's unique to social media. Prior to that, if you went away from a friend and you just kind of faded away from them, or you had a fight but you knew that you would someday get together again, the friendship breakup is another way that things are accelerated on social media. But young people today are also very, very skilled in managing, as we talked about in the last chapter, self-presentation online, right? So that also fits in to the teen years, because teens have advantages today that I didn't have, and that others who didn't grow up in the digital media world. They can manage their personal details in the public space. They can really set those profile settings exactly as they want it, and post exactly the kind of photo that they want, and block certain people from visiting, and quietly delete friendships, and all the other things that you can do to manage who you communicate with. That's really, really unique to today's generation. You didn't have that. If you went outside your house, you bumped into whoever's out there. Yeah, you could try and avoid somebody when you see them, but you don't have a lot of as much control in the other parallel universe. Also, young people can experiment with identities, especially when they're trying to figure out who they are and what makes them different from their parents. That they can try out aliases. They can join groups and withdraw from other groups. They can make one set of friends and they can keep that set of friends separate from a second set of friends, or join those set of friends up. And all the while they can role play in the way that they talk and the kinds of emojis they post and all the other manners of communicating on social media. They can really play around with that and see what identities they like the best and choose one. But then again, we also know that bullying on social media is in a way more democratic, but also more pervasive. And what I mean by that is a bully from the past had to be like a playground bully. They had to be bigger, stronger, somehow meaner. On social media, you can be the smallest person in the world and you can be a big bully because of the things that you post and the way that you can hound somebody and make somebody feel bad. It's very much an equalizing thing, social media, when it comes to bullying, but also makes it more prevalent, as many of you in this class will already undoubtedly know. And then there's the whole idea of revealing personal details about somebody who you've broken up with or you're no longer friends with on social media, revealing those details on social media in its extreme form, sexting, revealing the naked body of somebody who you were in a personal relationship with and you're no longer, and you share it and somehow it gets out, or you do it as a revenge thing. The Pennsylvania state legislature right now is trying to come up with a law that addresses this, and it's still in process. And we know that generally it's illegal, but how do you really play that out when both of you are posting things on social media all the time willingly with public settings? It's a very murky area. At any rate, to wrap things up, we do know that those teenage years are very, very difficult years, as you are not that far removed from yourself, and I hope that a lot of this material has rung some bells. I think it does for all of us. We always remember those teenage years. But the teens growing up in the digital world, the digital natives, they have unique challenges today that others have not had in the past. I hope you have a great day.